This is Gilbert Gottfried, and this is Gilbert Gottfried's amazing Colossal podcast, and I'm here with my co-host, Frank Santopadre, and our engineer, Frank Verderosa. Our guest this week was crazy enough to return for another visit, and we're thrilled to have him back. He's an actor, singer, musician, director, radio personality, former member of the Hollywood Vampires, and one of the most beloved pop culture figures of the last half century. You've seen and heard him in dozens of television shows, including Peyton Place, My Three Sons, Adam 12, The Ben Stiller Show, The Drew Carey Show, Batman, the animated series, The Tick, Difficult People, and of course, as the title character in Circus Boy. He's also directed dozens of stage productions, television shows, and TV movies, and appeared on Broadway in Elton John's and Tim Rice's Aida. I know it had to do with my aunt.
Yeah.
My aunt Ida.
Ida Gottfried.
Yeah. He played my aunt Ida. He was totally in drag and put on a fat suit.
Can do anything.
And he's coming back as my other Aunt Rivka. Ida, and also Aida, and also...
I know, it's 3 syllables.
Yeah.
I know that's tough. 3 syllables is tough, but you can do it. You can do it.
Don't interrupt me. That's very unprofessional. And also in feature films, such as Rob Zombie's remake of Halloween, and one of the strangest and most original movies ever committed to celluloid, the Jack Nicholson scripted Head. But it's his work as a singer and musician that's brought him the most acclaim as one of the 4 original members of the pop rock sensation known as the Monkees, a group that sold millions of records, starred in a hit primetime TV series, and played to sold-out arenas all over the world. His new album, along with his fellow surviving Monkees, Peter Tork, and former podcast guest Michael Nesmith, with whom he's also planning a 2019 tour. It's called Christmas Party. Please welcome back to the podcast a genuine icon, an artist of many talents, and one of our few guests to have worked with Lon Chaney Jr. Our old pal, Micky Dolenz.
I'm going to need some more wine. If you don't mind, please. Yes.
Welcome back, Mick.
Hey. Hello, and thank you for having me back. It's fantastic.
I just realized something. We had on Mike Nesmith, and we're having you for a second time. So inadvertently, this podcast has become a fuck you to Peter Tork.
I think Peter would be quite happy.
You gotta ask Peter
to do it.
Well,
he's having his some health issues, as you've probably heard.
Yes. How's he feeling?
Okay. I mean,
Good.
you know, it's there are issues we get along the way. Nez, of course,
how's Nez?
as you know, had some pretty major issues. Well, he's good. He went out on the road. He's doing his first national band tour.
Good.
And we're going out in March again to fill the dates we missed and do a bunch more And then I think we're going to Australia, New Zealand. That's not all confirmed yet, but that's what we're looking at. And so, yeah, Nez is doing pretty good. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So he's doing well enough to travel around the world.
He's just did 8 weeks. Well, no, I think 3 or 4 weeks with his first national band tour. And I think he's going out again in January. And then we do a international tour in March and April. So,
I saw on the website that the Beacon in New York was one of your stops. So
well, that was one of the ones that got not canceled, but
so
postponed.
We'll be there.
Excellent. Yeah.
And how's Peter doing?
Well, I haven't talked to him a lot. He's being very private about everything, but I understand he does have some health issues, and we just are praying and wishing him the best.
You were surprised to hear, before we turn on the mics, you were somewhat surprised to hear that Mike agreed to do this show.
Yeah, Mike very seldom has done self-promoting publicity. Ever.
We were very flattered because he had turned down doing David Letterman.
Yeah, that's true.
We hijacked him. We used Gilbert's son as a secret weapon. He was in a hotel at the Chiller Fest signing autographs, and we sent Dara up with Gilbert's. I guess your son was 5 at the time, or 4, and we sent him up, and he jumped in Nez's lap, and we had him hooked.
Well, did you ask him why he had deigned to do your show? I
think we shamed him.
Yeah, we didn't want to.
He has, notoriously has avoided doing
he had my son was sitting in his lap the whole interview playing with his neck.
He couldn't say no.
I don't want to hear any more of that about blah 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 blah. Okay.
Now, like it said in the introduction, you worked. There was one episode where you worked with Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah.
And
Rosemary.
Also Uncle Leo.
Oh, yeah, Len Lesser.
Lesser.
Yeah.
But I love Lon Chaney Jr., and you said you also lived next door to him.
Yes, absolutely.
Tell us about Lon Chaney Jr.
Well, I was, 4 or 5 years old. My parents told me who he was, and yes, literally lived next door. And they had a pool, which we did not, swimming pool. And so I remember my sister and I, Coco, at 4, 5, 6 years old, there was a hole in the fence between the 2 yards in the San Fernando Valley. And I guess that he knew my father. I think they had actually worked in a movie together. And he said, hey, let him come over and, swim in the pool. So we would duck through the fence and go swim in the pool and hang out. And we were obviously, just little kids. And then lo and behold, 20 odd years later or something, he comes on the show, on the Monkey Show. And he remembered me and I remembered him.
How about that?
Yeah, lovely man. Very gentle, sweet man.
Everybody was on that show. I think we touched on it last time. I mean, we just mentioned Rosemary, Julie Newmar, famously, Liberace, your pal Zappa. Yeah. It was a place to be seen. Well, it was a show to do.
At that time, it was, and actually,
Stan Freberg.
There was a lot of people that turned it down.
Interesting,
because they didn't get it, and people that did get it, like Frank Zappa, who, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before. I probably hadn't remembered. Frank asked me to be the new drummer for the Mothers of Invention in the 70s.
Very cool.
Late 70s, early 80s. And I called my record company and they wouldn't let me out of my contract for the recording part. And I was kind of relieved because I don't think there's any way I could have kept up with that kind of. I mean, I've listened to Frank's music, and it's like, time signatures are 13/7. It's like, what is that?
Well, you taught yourself the drums late. I don't know if people know that.
No, I didn't. I had teachers. I had Hal Blaine,
right.
Earl Palmer,
Hal Blaine. Wow.
John Carlos. I had to learn fast.
And you knew how to play the guitar. But then they said, you're not going to play the guitar in this show. You're going to play drums.
Yeah. Well, like when I was 10 years old and they said, you're going to ride an elephant in Circus Boy. And I said, fine, where do I start? And I learned to ride an elephant very quickly. It's not that difficult. But in the monkey situation, my audition piece was on guitar. It was Johnny Be Good.
Yeah, right.
By Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
But eventually, when they cast me, they said, okay, and you're going to be the drummer. But being a child of Hollywood and television and understanding the whole deal, I said, fine, where do I start? I could read music because of playing the guitar. So I wasn't starting from square one. I mean, I'd been in rock groups. I had my own cover band, Micky and the One-Nighters, because it was only one night, but boy, was that a great night. And
wasn't there a Missing Links? Wasn't there a band?
And the Missing Links, that was another name. And I was the lead singer and doing cover tunes, basically. Chuck Berry, Money by Barrett Strong, Walking the Dog, Lucille, all that 50s, 60s cover band stuff.
And who were some of the people who were writing the Monkees music back then?
Total unknowns. I mean, people that never, ever wrote another song in their lives. I don't know what happened to them. There were people like this girl called Carole King and her partner Jerry Goffin.
Oh, wow.
There was this guy, Neil Diamond. Whatever happened? Yeah, there was Paul Williams. There was Neil Sedaka.
Yeah.
There was Carol Bayer Sager, Diane Hildebrand, Boyce and Hart. Who wrote the biggest, including the theme song, and also produced the stuff. I don't know what happened.
John Stewart wrote Daydream
John
Believer.
Stewart, Daydream Believer, one of the original Kingston Trio.
That's right.
Harry Nilsson, I don't know what happened to these people.
One-hit wonders.
One-hit wonders. Gone. Disappeared forever.
So they were just basically like studio musicians you had doing these songs.
Well, they were writers. They were at the Brill Building.
Yeah.
And that was not coincidental. A little bit of industry side note. Screen Gems Columbia Music was a subsidiary of Columbia Screen Gems Television, which was part of Columbia Pictures. Columbia Pictures was, at that time, run by Abe Schneider, whose son, Bert Schneider, produced the Monkees. But more importantly, is Jackie Cooper was the head of Screen Gems Television. And so he got it.
The Jackie Cooper.
The Jackie Cooper.
From the Rascals.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
And he got it somehow. I don't know. I met him. When I met him, I'm like 19 years old. But I was a fan. I mean, I remembered him.
Sure.
So between him and Don Kirshner and Bert Schneider, Bob Rafelson, Paul Mazursky, who wrote the pilot.
Larry Tucker,
his partner at the time. They just, I guess, they just got it. They, green lighted a pilot. And, rest is hysterectomy.
It's sort of getting ahead a little bit too, Micky, but I was going to ask
you.
I was going to ask you, at what point did you realize this thing is going to take off and my life is never going to be the same?
Well, that's a great question because it had happened to me actually once before when I got the Circus Boy gig. I was in the business through my parents already, and my father was doing quite well. And so I understood a little bit, at least, about the business. So at 10 years old, and I remember this quite clearly, I had gone for auditions. I'd already been on a few auditions. In fact, I have some prenatal work coming out on ultrasound.
Really?
It's very...
We'll look for that.
It's grainy and black and white, but it's...
I want to remind our listeners, too, before you go on, that your father was a very accomplished character actor, George Dolenz.
Absolutely,
Tell us about your parents.
Okay.
What they've done.
They both were in showbiz. that was our family business. They met doing a play in Hollywood. My mom had come from Texas to be a star.
Janelle Johnson.
Sorry?
Janelle.
She'd driven out from Austin, Texas to be an actress. My father had been born in Italy, had escaped Mussolini, basically, I think, jumped ship somewhere. We're not even sure, but got out of town. Ended up in Cuba, then Florida, then all over the place. Wanted to be an actor. Short story, he ends up in Hollywood in the restaurant business because he knew that. And he was the maitre d' of a very famous restaurant called the Trocadero back then. And the story is, he was in the men's room taking a pee, and standing next to him is Howard Hughes.
Oh, right.
Who says, "You're a really good-looking guy. You're the maitre d' here, right?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "And I'm an actor." Signed him to a contract. So all of a sudden, we move into the Bing Crosby mansion in Toluca Lake.
Incredible.
Because in those days, you got a contract with anybody, and you had a shitload of money.
So he signed with RKO first, right?
No, it's Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes was RKO.
Right out of the bat.
Right out of the bat.
Out of the gate.
But only made like 1 or 2 movies because Howard Hughes only made 1 or 2 movies. And eventually we moved out of that place into a more reasonable place. But that was my life. I only knew that. I mean, I went to the set with him. I thought everybody's father was an actor.
And what movies was he in, and who did he work with?
Well, the biggest ones would have been Vendetta, the Howard Hughes movie with...
Give us a hint.
Oh, the woman that Howard Hughes invented the broth.
Jane Russell.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then his biggest claim to fame, I think, would have been the Count of Monte Cristo.
Yes, he was the Count of Monte Cristo on television.
For the television series shot in England, and very successful.
But he worked with everybody, Edward G. Robinson and Elizabeth Taylor. He's in The Last Time I Saw Paris.
My Cousin Rachel, Richard Burton, and stuff.
Scared Stiff, which Gilbert enjoyed hearing, a Martin and Lewis movie.
Did you ever try to get Jerry Lewis on the Monkees?
He came... Funny, you should ask that question. I had totally forgotten. One day, we were told, I remember, because they were looking for directors, because we were killing directors. I mean, actually, a couple had heart attacks.
Wow.
It was like really bad. That's a whole other story. And all of a sudden, one day, Bob and Bert said, Jerry Lewis is coming on the set. Consider directing. And I was like a huge fan of The Delinquent, those early Jerry Lewis movies. And I remember just like, oh my God, I mean, how nice. And my understanding is he said, I'm not going to work with these fucking idiots. Because we were off the wall. I mean, Bob and Bert and Jack Nicholson and James Frawley out of Second City.
Sure.
Emmy Award winning.
He's still around, James Frawley.
Oh, of course he is.
Yeah, we'd love to get him on this show.
He directed many, if not most of the great episodes.
Funny man.
He was brought in early times to teach us improv. And I remember I'd never done improv as a actor guy. It was like throw the ball back and forth and do the thing, and you're this and you're that, and make up some. I was always very uncomfortable with improv, and still am. Drew has asked me a number of times in the old days, and people have said, "Oh, come on up."
Oh, Drew Carey's asked you to be on his show. Yeah.
Well, he did, and I know all of them. And I'm chicken shit. I just don't know any of those skills. I've never trained in them. I can, have a couple of glasses of wine in a bar and be really funny. but if you say, okay, 3, 2, 1, hit it, like Ryan and
they're great.
I can't do that.
They're gifted.
I can't. Oh my God.
So I can't say to you, okay, you're a farmer and it's a musical.
Can I get some more wine?
It's going to be one of those. Well, and yet your dad worked with Jerry twice.
Oklahoma, where the wind.
There you go. He gave it to you, Gil.
See, you
And
don't
the
play.
corn is high as an elephant's butt, and you can't.
You know, I rode an elephant.
You did?
Yeah, when we're during one of the big Disney parties, that they had for Aladdin. They had a big parade in the park.
Was a saddle on the thing? How did you get on it?
Yeah, they put a saddle on it.
You had a saddle?
Yes.
Wow.
I didn't get a
You
saddle.
both rode elephants.
I had to climb up, of course, on a ladder and to get on. And I didn't want to ride the elephant. I was scared. And they kept asking, and I kept saying, no, I'm scared. That's way up in the air.
Wow.
And then finally they said, Entertainment Tonight and a few other TV shows are going to be filming. So I said, all right, I'll ride.
You have a picture of this?
Yeah, I'm sure there must be. Yeah.
It's not difficult because they're very broad. They have a large back, and you ride the neck part actually, as you remember. The toughest thing for me as circus boy was that they had this wool kind of circus turn of the century outfit, custom made, from Western costume, and the hair of an elephant is about the diameter of a pencil lead, right? And so if they don't shave it, it becomes stubble, but the stubble becomes pencil lead stubble.
Wow.
And I would get on the elephant. They'd say, okay, mount up, and they'd throw me on top. And I'm like, ow! And because there was this stubble coming through of a quarter of an inch, and it was going through my outfit, my costume, it was really uncomfortable. And I very clearly remember, okay, get him off the elephant. And they called the handler over. Arkansas was his name, old school handler. And he took a blowtorch.
Oh my God.
To shave the elephant. And the elephant liked it. I mean,
My God.
I mean, their skin is 2.5 inches thick. I mean, the epidermis is 2.5 inches thick.
Wow.
And the elephant is going, oh, yeah. Oh, baby. Because we're feeding him Baby Ruth candy bars in the wrapper. In the wrapper. Arkansas would say, he loves Baby Ruth candy bars. And I would try to open. He says, don't bother. Just give him the. So I'm giving him Baby Ruth candy bars. And Arkansas's shaving him with a blowtorch. And the elephant's going, Bimbo's going, oh, yeah. Oh, Baby Ruth, mama, yeah.
So
That's
Bimbo was one elephant. He wasn't.
No, there were a couple because they would outgrow the part, like me. I mean, I outgrew it eventually.
Sure.
We started with a little baby elephant, but they grow up pretty fast.
And one thing Frank and I are certainly fans of. Your mother worked with Rondo Hatton
in The Brute Man.
Yes.
Your mother didn't make many films. I think she made 2.
And I should tell everyone out there, look up Rondo Hatton. You'll recognize him mostly as a mask every Halloween in every store window.
Yeah, he was the creeper.
Yes.
Yeah, Rondo Hatton.
He had acromegaly.
Correct.
Yeah, he did. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And she made a film with him. She did a couple of other small things, and then she met my father. And like I mentioned earlier, they'd met doing a play together and got married and had me. And then being old school Italian, he said, my wife is never going to work again, that kind of thing. My understanding is I think she had some issues with it over the years. I mean, what she could have been.
Too bad.
Yeah, you know, it's
auspicious debut. I mean, she worked with Claudette Colbert and Shirley Temple, and yeah.
But having said that, we were blessed. My sisters and I, myself and 3 sisters, we had a stay-at-home mom.
Oh yeah,
for our entire
That's nice.
lives. And you can't beat that.
And your mom managed your career at a certain point when Circus Boy took off. Was your grandmother running your fan club?
Well, that was later, but
okay.
my mom, I had to have someone on the set.
Gotcha.
And my mom was my set mom.
It must have been an extra reward for her to see your success.
Oh, yeah, big time. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And then I made her my business manager in the Monkeys. She saved my ass so many times.
So she stayed in the business.
And yeah, in that sense, yes. I mean, I said, when I got my first big monkey check, which was like 6 figures, in the 60s, a lot of money. And I didn't know what to do with it, and I said, Mom, yeah, what do you want to do? And so I made her my business manager, essentially. And I just gave her the checkbook. I gave her the everything, and she ran and saved my ass. I mean, invested, in things and made a lot of money eventually in later years. A lot of work for her, but I made it worth her while. And yeah,
you got a stay-at-home mom and a savvy manager out of
oh boy,
win-win.
I can't tell you, win-win.
So that worked out really well.
Really well.
Gilbert, you'll appreciate some of the actors that were on Circus Boy before we move off of Circus Boy. Slim Pickens.
Yep.
Okay.
Emil Sitka.
Yeah.
Wow, from the Three Stooges.
Yeah.
This one will hurt you.
You love birds.
Billy Barty. Gil.
Yep.
Oh,
a few times.
A few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's
Yep.
my connection there. I once auditioned for a Mel Brooks movie, Life Stinks, and they were all saying, "Oh, forget it. You have this part. Everyone loves you. You are just exactly who he had in mind." That typical Hollywood
bullshit.
Yeah. and so then I said, "Okay, so when will I be shooting this?" And they said, "Oh, they're going with someone else." And I said, "They're going who?" And they said, "Billy Barty."
I laugh every time.
And you're now polishing the mouthpiece to your Luger.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep, Billy Barty. There was some...
Jesse White?
Yep, Jesse.
Oh, great.
Right?
Sterling Holloway?
Sterling Holloway.
Oh,
I remember
geez.
him really well in the balloon episode. And
wow.
he was wonderful. We had some wonderful guest actors on that show.
And you all remember Sterling
Holloway.
Sterling Holloway, unless I'm who was I hope I'm not fucking this up. I won't say anything because I think I'm fucking.
Wasn't he the voice of Winnie the Pooh? Sterling Holloway? I believe he was.
I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. And Robert Lowry, who's
Great
your
actor.
co-star, who's interesting because he played Batman in a serial in the 40s.
Oh my God! Okay, who
One
else?
of the first Batmen.
Yeah, he's one of the first Batmen.
Noah Bear Jr., of course.
Noah Berry.
Incredible actor.
Yeah.
Wonderful man.
Yeah.
Went on to be Rockford's dad.
Correct.
And he really took me under his wing because we had mostly scenes together because he's the one that had adopted me. My parents, the Flying Falcons.
Yes. The story.
Stop laughing.
The backstory of Circus
This is
Boy.
serious, sad shit. Girlfriend, stop laughing. I'm out of here. I am fucking... You're making fun of my parents dying in a fucking trapeze accident. That's so cruel.
Corky is adopted by a clown, played by the great Noah Berry. It's just
I'll try to take this seriously.
Bring everybody up to speed on Circus Boy.
That was the pitch to Columbia's Screen Gems, right, from the producers.
They bought it.
There's this little kid that his parents die, he gets adopted by a clown. Great pilot. Boom. Anyway, Noah Bear Jr. was unbelievable.
Loved him on the Rockford Files.
He was the father.
Yeah,
Raph.
terrific.
Wonderful actor, lovely man. And Robert Lowry, and as you say,
and like
Pidge
you,
Barry,
came from an acting family.
Another great character actor from the 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
Pidge Barry was his name, cowboy kind of character actor, and we had some great people on that.
Monk now. I was about to say Monkey Boy.
Combine
the two. Is Circus Boy playing on Antenna TV? Is it? Can you find it?
I believe it has.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I always got a kick out of the Porpoise song when there's that reference to, there's that veiled reference to you and Circus Boy.
Sure.
Riding on the elephant's back.
Backs of giraffes.
Backs of giraffes. Yeah, it's a fun little inside joke. So you had a taste of fame. I mean, you and Davey, who also was a child performer, you guys were the two monkeys that were most likely to adjust easily.
And tell us what Davy Jones, what big show he was on what big night.
Yeah, that's a fun connection.
Oh, you know about that? You've done your research.
First time
I'm
anyone's ever said that to me.
I have told the story before, but I'll tell it again. 63-4?
February 64.
February 64.
Yeah.
I was just got out of high school, frankly. My father just passed away. I was a bit of a loose end, hanging out, running around the San Fernando Valley in an American graffiti-esque sort of zeitgeist. Ooh.
Wow. That paints a picture.
Yeah. And a friend of mine said, I got a portable television, black and white, portable, you can plug into your car. And we knew he'd stole it immediately. But you plugged it into the cigarette lighter. This 64. And you put the antenna, rabbit ear, little antennas up on the roof, and a little cable came down, and you had a little 8-inch black and white television. And we went to a place in the valley where I grew up called Bob's Big Boys Hamburgers.
Oh, yeah.
Very famous.
Still there, right?
Not that one.
Oh, not that one. The one in Burbank's still there.
The one in Burbank is still there. The other one got torn down. And we were there getting served by the girls on the car hops with getting burgers and stuff. And somebody said the Beatles are on Ed Sullivan. And we'd heard that this was going to happen. There was a buzz in the air. That's the only thing I can really remember, is that there was a buzz in the air about this English thing, Beatle thing, something happening. And sure enough, we tweaked the little rabbit ears on the top of the car, and this little black and white image comes in, and it's the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. And this other little kid doing a song from Oliver, which was on Broadway at the time, named Davy Jones. And we turned it off. Yeah, the Beatles are over,
Right.
Yeah. But years later, of course, it becomes...
He was playing the Artful Dodger, Davy.
Yeah, he was the Artful Dodger, and one of the best, if not the best, Artful Dodgers ever.
It's great trivia, too, because people knew, obviously they knew they were watching the Beatles. They didn't know they were watching a monkey, a future monkey.
That was still, well, it's actually, funnily enough, it's only 2 years
away.
2 years
Can you
away.
imagine? Yeah.
And
did Davey know?
years.
I've heard this. I thought it was bullshit. Did Davey not know who they were? Is that possible?
Couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
You'd have to ask him.
Yeah.
He'd have to be as stupid as Yoko Ono not to know who the...
No, I don't know. I have no idea, actually.
And here's some worthless trivia. David Bowie's real name was Davy Jones.
Yep.
That's good trivia.
That's good. And Worthless Trivia is a great name for a group.
Gilbert, you could be the front man of Worthless Trivia.
Tonight at the Whiskey, Worthless Trivia with Gilbert Godfrey.
This is my last comment on Circus Boy. because only because this name has come up on the show recently. Do you remember a gentleman named William Bodine?
Of course.
William One Shot Bodine, as he became, directed many episodes of Circus Boy.
And a great director.
How about that?
Yeah. How do you know that?
He directed Bela Lugosi Meets a Brooklyn Gorilla. He's a legend.
Yeah, he was called One Shot Bodine because if the actor fell over and hit his face on the pavement, he wouldn't do a second take. He'd go good enough.
Because I became known 55 decades later as One Shot Dolenz in England when I started to direct English TV shows and movies. It's not a great rep to have.
No.
Because then they expect it from you and they don't pay you and you're expected to do it in one take. And so a lot of the shit that I directed is shit. Because I got known for being really fast. It's like, we need to have this thing shot in 30 minutes. Get Micky Dolenz. And so it's not necessarily a great rep. But that's true. Yeah, he was very fast.
Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter, I believe, was also a William Bodine joint.
Yeah.
We're fascinated by his career.
Yeah, he's known for being like one of the shittiest directors ever.
One of the what?
One of the shittiest directors ever.
He was prolific, though.
Yeah.
He turned him out. Yeah.
Yeah, because he never did a second take on anything.
In my research, I found one other fun thing that we didn't have on you last time from your child acting days, is you played the son of Art Carney.
Oh, you found that out?
Yes.
I actually am quite proud of that little bit. That was Playhouse 90.
Yes, sir.
Written by Rod Sterling.
Wow.
Hello.
Yeah. How about that, Gilbert?
Rod Sterling.
Yeah.
Called The Velvet Alley, starring Art Carney.
And Leslie Nielsen.
And Jack Klugman.
Jeez.
And I was this little 12, about in that year I would have been,
I'd have to look up the year of it.
Well, I would have been, it was post Circus Boy.
59 maybe?
Post Circus Boy.
Okay.
So 59.
That is a great cast.
And I was, oh my God, it was a wonderful, and it was live. We're talking Playhouse 90 live TV from CBS Studios on Fairfax and, and it was wonderful. It was so exciting. I mean, and it was directed by Frankenheimer, I think. Yes, I think it was.
That's pretty cool.
Directed by...
and a script by Rod Serling.
He wrote the story and the script.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting thing about a boxer and, a wonderful, beautiful drama.
So it's Art Carney, Jack Klugman.
And, yes. And who else did we say? Leslie Nielsen.
Jeez.
And Diane, just to tie it into our show, Diane Cannon was in it. And a young Burt Reynolds.
In that?
Yes.
You gotta be
According to
kidding me.
IMDb. And,
it was wonderful. I remember to this day, oh my God, I was incredibly flattered to be asked. And then to do live theater, essentially live theater, was for me I'd already been an actor for like 10 years, 5, 6, 8 years. I was jazzed. I mean, like, Jesus.
And Carney was someone you admired.
Well, Carney was.
Yeah.
No one else I'd ever heard of. Mm-hmm. No, I think I probably would have heard of Serling because I was a Twilight Zone fan. Yeah.
Right.
But nobody else.
And how would they like to work with?
Well, I don't remember specifically, moments. I don't remember any issues or aggravations.
Do you have a copy of that, Micky? Is there any way to find that? I looked online.
You really?
There's a version on YouTube with Carney. It's very grainy.
Well, because they didn't keep that stuff.
I know.
They didn't even kinescope it.
I know.
It would have been somebody like taking a movie of their television or something. Shame. It's a real shame.
Yeah.
Because those Playhouse 90s, some of them, Requiem for a Heavyweight. I mean, there was
great stuff.
Huge stuff.
Great stuff
out there. It's too bad nobody bothered, but they would throw the stuff away. They would.
Yeah, we had Dick Cavalier. We were talking about how the first Tonight Show was taped over with Groucho introduces Carson. And there's no way to get your hands on it. There's no copy of it.
Well, no, but they figured the tape was worth more than the show.
Recycle them.
And I think
Tragic.
it was
Like you're going to erase my show.
We're
right,
going to tape
recording
over it with William Bodine.
You haven't even taped it. You haven't even bothered to.
The mic is licorice. It's a prop.
It's when with Ernie Koufax.
Same
I
thing.
think somebody called his
How
wife.
do you know Ernie Koufax?
Yeah.
You're not old enough to know Ernie.
Someone called his wife, some worker on the set.
Edie Adams, yeah.
Yeah, and said, "Come over here. They're burning all of his shows."
I want to ask you a monkey's question because I find this stuff in research and I don't know what's BS and what's real. Were you guys invited into the studio one at a time because you couldn't be? You're saying you were giving directors heart attacks because if you all came in as a group, you became too unruly. You tried to crack each other up.
There is some truth in that.
Okay. They had to isolate you?
No, it's not as...
Because you hear that about the Marx Brothers.
It's not as dramatic as that. But there was some truth and is some truth in the fact, and to this day.
Yeah.
Like I think I mentioned before, they had encouraged us, indeed trained us to be improvisational with Jim Frawley. And so when we did get together as a cast, and remember, we weren't a band, we were a cast, and they had encouraged, educated, really, said, you guys really got to get together as a troupe, I guess, whatever you'd call it. So when we did, on a good day, we would, be healthy and happy and everything would work. On a bad day, so to speak, we would bounce off the walls. I mean,
imagine.
Seriously bounce off the walls. And there was one famous example when we did an episode with a very famous actor, wonderful actor named Hans Conried.
Oh, sure.
Oh, my God.
Uncle Tanous.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who I was such a fan. I can't tell you. But in those days, of course, actors like Hans Conried would learn their lines and they would expect to come in and do their lines on cue, action, boom, you do. And of course, we are off the walls. And there's a famous outtake of him saying, "I hate these fucking kids." there is. And I don't blame him. And to this day, I feel sorry. But it ain't my fault. The producers encouraged us to do this because what they would do is take the best of the shit and the best of the good stuff and the best of the outtakes and the best of the this. And there were other actors and actresses at the time who were able to go with the flow. Rosemary is the best example I can think of. We did at least two or three shows with her. And she got it, and she was like right there and for everything.
So they wanted anarchy. They were encouraging you guys to just bounce off the walls and see what they got.
Yes.
Yeah.
They were. They encouraged, not just encouraged, educated. I mean, they trained.
Yeah, it's just fascinating.
Because they wanted that idea. They wanted that feeling of spontaneity and because that was the zeitgeist of the time, remember? I mean, well, you wouldn't because you're too young, but the idea of the 60s, early 60s was spontaneity, improvisation, anything goes, remember, it's the remnants of the beatnik generation of Kerouac and Jack Cassidy and all that idea of it's just,
and they wanted a counterculture show. I mean, you guys messed with the censors. You had that famous episode where you were trying to.
I told you that one.
Well, I know about it. I don't know if you told us the last time you were here. I know about it. It's a famous story where you couldn't say hell on network television, and you guys just decided this would be a good time to tweak the network and the censors.
Yeah. Well, not just us. Remember, there's Bob Rafelson
and Schneider. Right.
There was an episode called "The Devil and Peter Tork." And it was Faust. essentially, based on the Faustian legend. Peter sold his soul to the devil.
Remember it well?
Yep. To be able to play the harp, because he couldn't play the harp, but he wanted to. And so I can't remember who wrote the episode. We had some great writers on that series. But somebody wrote the episode that Peter sells his soul to the devil. Monty Landis.
Love Monty Landis.
Oh, my God. Incredible character actor. And he comes back to the flat, the apartment in Malibu, our Malibu beach house, which begs the question, how could we afford a Malibu beach house when we never got work? Yeah, ever. So that's a whole other issue. So Peter comes back, says, I can play the harp. But Peter, how do you do? Well, this guy gave me this contract, and we see it, and it's this the contract with the devil. And so the line in the script is, and I think I was the one that was supposed to say it, but Peter, you can't sign this, because if you do and you die, you'll go to hell. And they sent it off to the script to Standards and Practices, NBC, New York. And they came back, you cannot say the word hell in primetime television, ever. And Bob Rafelson, my understanding is that Bob and Bert said, wait a minute, this is Faust. Are you kidding me? Damn Yankees?
Yeah, sure.
Well, this was damn monkeys, essentially.
Right.
And they said, no, you can't say it. So Bob went to New York, I understand, and flew to New York and argued with the standards and practices of the time. And they said, no, you cannot say hell in primetime television in 1966. And so if you look at the episode now, that scene comes up, and I believe I'm the one that says, but Peter, you can't do that, because if you sign this, you will go to this place that we can't say on network television.
Yeah, right. Fourth wall broken.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
I mean, think back how bizarre that must have been.
Yeah.
Well, the censors were all over us.
I'll bet.
And that's why when we did Head, we just said,
that's it. We're going to do what we want. Did you dump a soda over Kirshner's head? Is that true too?
No, not well. With an amendment.
Okay.
It was not a soda. It was just a bit of ice.
Okay.
That was the leftover soda. But I got to preface it by saying, Donnie Kirshner, now, especially in retrospect, was so responsible for so many great hits. He was the songmeister of the Brill Building.
Yeah, sure.
Right? He was Screen Gems publishing music. Donnie was the one picking from Neil Diamond, from Carole King, from who, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you saw Beautiful, but his character is exemplified by the guy in Beautiful that says, we got this show, TV show about this band. You got to write some stuff. And Carol and Jerry write Pleasant Valley Sunday. But,
right.
So I have nothing but admiration for Donnie Kirshner. He had golden ears. He could hear those. But I didn't know who he was because he was in New York. I was in L.A., and I was 20 years old, and I'm in the midst of this. I'm in the eye of the hurricane, and this guy comes in once in a while in a suit, looking like the vice president or somebody. It's like, and he's like, giving orders and kind of, directing people around. And I had no clue who he was at the time. Years later, I did. And so we're in the way I remember it is that we were in the studio, and there was Mike was in the studio, Peter and we were all there for some reason. I don't remember why, doing vocals or instrument. And Donnie, who I had no idea who he was, I don't even know if I'd been introduced, made some comment, very technical kind of comment, like, there's a little bit too much EQ on the bass. And, I'm stoned. And we're all just like rocking and rolling. And it's like midnight, after we filmed the TV show for 10 hours.
Mm-hmm. Long days.
Yeah, long days. And so I had an empty paper cup of Coca-Cola or something in a with some ice in it. And just as an improvisational gag, which they had taught me to do, I just went, "Oh, Donnie," and I poured the ice over his head. So it wasn't a whole cup of Coke. It was just
changed. The story's changed over
a bit
the
of
years.
ice. Well, fake news.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Urban myth. But he did ask me to come out into the hallway after that. And he said, I don't even know if you know who I am, but I do wish you would treat me with a little more respect. And I took that on board.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, okay, I'm sorry. I was just fucking around. They tell me every day to fuck around. So I don't know. Maybe there's cameras here and we're going to use it in the show. I mean, it was literally
so it's hard to turn it off even when you stop shooting.
Impossible.
Yeah.
To turn it off.
How did they pitch it to you?
Impossible to turn it off.
I'm
That's
sure.
a really important idea.
How did they pitch it to you? Did they say, this is Hard Day's Night, this is Lester, this is the Marx Brothers, this is... How did they present what they were going for? Were they that specific?
I can only describe to you my experience, and I can guarantee you that if you talk to Mike or Peter, well, obviously not David anymore, but you'll get probably, Rashomon?
Sure.
Oh, yes.
You get different versions.
Hello.
Yeah.
This is Monkey Rashomon. Because we were all totally unknowables. We never knew each other. We hadn't met. But I will tell you my version, my story. I was, my agent called me up one day. I was enrolled in college doing architectural drafting. And he said, there's a audition for a TV show. And I wasn't stupid. I mean, I had been in TV shows, so I was doing television work in the summer between classes. Peyton Place.
My Three Sons.
Yeah, My Three Sons.
Right.
Mr. Novak.
Right, Mr. Novak, James
I was
Franciscus.
just making money. I mean, I could do that or either work at Vaughn's, as a bag boy. But I was in school. I was in college doing architectural drafting. And I figured if I can't make it as an architect, I can fall back on showbiz. So I get my call from my agent. Do you want to do this interview? It's another series this year, 65. Okay, I'll do it. Well, I was up for 4 different series that year, musical shows.
Oh.
It was in the air. Oh, it was big time in the air. Because of the Beatles, not just the Beatles, but Beach Boys and like the whole rock and roll world. And one show called The Happeners.
The Happeners.
I was up for.
Wow.
It was Peter, Paul, and Mary, essentially. Not them, but
a folk trio.
Folk thing.
Yeah.
Hour-long kind of drama thing. Went to pilot. I was up for it. I didn't get the part. Did not sell in the overnights. Another one I remember being up for was Surfer Band, kind of a Beach Boy thing, because they were huge. I don't remember the name, but I was up for it. I went in, did the audition, whatever. It did not go to pilot. And the other one I remember is a new Christy Minstrel, Randy Sparks, kind of The Mighty Wind. You know that movie?
Sure.
Yeah. The big 30 people on stage. I got a hammer.
Like a folk festival or big folk groups.
Big 30-piece folk group. And I can't remember the name of that one, but it did not go to pilot.
All these music pilots in one season.
Well, I was up for 4.
Wow.
There might have been more, but because it's 1965.
Right.
And so the folk thing is hit. The rock and roll thing is hit. The Beatles have hit. It's like
British invasion.
Every producer in Hollywood in the world is like, how do we capitalize on this miracle? I mean, how do we capitalize on this? And then there was this audition for the Monkees. It was like
Ben Frank
and I
types.
told you, yeah.
Was there an in-joke, by the way, in that ad? When they wrote,
Yes. Must come down.
Must come down for interview?
Not a joke. Must come down for interview. Yeah.
Is that Rafelson's gag?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did Paul Williams audition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To this day, he hates me.
He's the best guy.
I love him to death.
Yeah.
We're actually great friends. When I directed, wrote the English musical Bugsy Malone.
Oh, sure. Paul's music.
I engaged him to write 3 or 4 more songs.
Right.
And so we hung out a lot. I know him well. And he has never forgiven me because not only was he up for the Monkees, he was up for Circus Boy.
Oh, my God.
Jeez.
You've stolen Paul Williams' thunder at every turn. Did they entertain the idea of using an existing group, Mickey?
Yes,
like
they
they
did.
start with a Lovin' Spoonful
Yes.
and yeah.
Boy, you've done your homework. I love
We
it.
try. I love this stuff.
it.
I love this stuff. So
No, they did. My understanding is they did. They did interview the Lovin' Spoonful. I have no idea. I was not there, obviously, and I have no idea why they made the decisions that they did make.
Right.
But I suspect that between Bob and Bert, Jackie Cooper, and Paul Mazursky and all these other elements, these other entities, having a musical sensibility is fine and great. And most bands, most groups have that because they grew up together. They are relatives.
Right.
They are friends from childhood, and they have a very similar sensibility. And that's great musically, not necessarily visually. The Marx Brothers were the most different, absurd characters you can imagine. They were not a group. They weren't a band. They were this cast of this like bizarre.
Right. But they'd honed that for 30 years or
on stage,
35 years.
On stage.
Sure.
So Bob and Bert, somebody, and I'm assuming it was Bob and Bert and Jackie Cooper and whoever, said, and I don't know, maybe they did tests, whatever. We just can't put 4 very similar people on this stage, on this show, because no one will know who's who, and it will all look very similar. So we need to go with very, very different characterizations. And my understanding is that they loosely thought, one wacky, one Will Rogers, one Harpo Marx, one Peter Tork,
Right.
one cute little guy, and to give the audience, all these different sort of characters to identify with. And if they would have put, because most groups at the time were brothers and cousins,
Sure.
and sonically, of course, it was amazing visually. Where do you go with it? Where do you go with the comedy? And so somebody along the line must have said, we need to have these very, very different characters.
The chemistry is lucky because you can't force chemistry or make chemistry. But but the four of you guys.
But what they did wisely were the screen tests. And they went on, and this is what I was referencing earlier. They went on for, like I say, to my mind, it was like friggin' months. Probably wasn't. It was only a few weeks. But what they did is they kept putting us together with each other. I remember it starting out like at 32, then it went to 16, then it was like 8. And the videos you find on YouTube are the last 8. David, Michael, Peter, and I, and 4 other gentlemen. And they must have been looking for that. I know that's what they were looking for because I've done that since.
It's an intangible thing, but I guess you know it when you see it. Yeah.
And I have done that.
Yeah, as a director.
As a producer.
And a producer.
John Lennon paid you the ultimate compliment. I think John Lennon referred to the Monkees as the modern-day Marx Brothers.
Yes.
Well, you've often said that.
He got it.
Yeah.
He got it. It wasn't the Monkees trying to be the Beatles. It was the Monkees being essentially the Marx Brothers.
You always said the people you admired got it. Lennon, Zappa, the people whose opinions mattered to you.
Well, to me,
understood what you were trying to do.
Yeah, and I didn't even get it at the time. I was just picking up my check every week for $400.
And oh God,
$400 a week.
That's it.
Wow.
Oh my God. Now, and how did Head come about?
Sorry? Oh, the movie.
Yes.
Oh,
we're jumping ahead. We're jumping ahead a few years.
Sorry, Gifford. You mean the movie?
Yes. Well, because I also heard that and I don't know if this is true. I hope it's true. That the reason they called it Head is so they could make another one and advertise it as from the people who gave you head.
Absolutely right.
Another great joke.
I remember that that is absolutely true from what I remember from the day one.
Yes.
Well, the short story is after the show was canceled for whatever reason, Bob and Bert came to me, and I can only speak for myself, and said, we want to make a movie. Abe's father is the head of Columbia Pictures. We think we can get the financing. But we want to do something maybe a little different than what we have done on the show. Because on the show, we couldn't say hell.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
And we couldn't talk about anything else, political, social. It was, and that, looking back, that was a wise decision. It was not the platform. That was not the platform to make statements and stuff. And I think that's one of the reasons it lasted so long until this day, is we didn't make topical, satirical statements.
That was a smart decision.
Very smart decision, yeah. And but when the idea for the movie came along, I just can speak for myself. Bob, I guess, came to me and said, well, he introduced us to Jack Nicholson. He was a B-movie actor at the time. And he was just so funny and so clever and so intelligent and so smart. And it was just like, I fell in love with him. I wanted to have his children. I mean, I'm like, oh my God, this is the greatest guy I've met in, years. And he spent time with me and my wife and my family and Mike and Peter and David. He got a sense of who and what it was. He and Bob must have obviously, spent a lot of time together because I had signed off on, okay, I'm happy to do a movie that is not a 90-minute monkey episode. In retrospect, of course, that would have been incredibly more successful, but it would not be the top 5 movies of Quentin Tarantino.
Right.
Or Edgar Wright.
Well, you guys were trying to break out. You were trying to do something different than you'd done.
I'd like to think that I was thinking that.
You weren't.
No.
Yeah.
I was just going with the flow. Bob and Bert and Jack and everybody were like, hey, let's just go for it. I had nothing to lose. I was this huge fucking star. And I was like, let's do something different, guys. But that was the sensibility of the moment anyway.
Right.
They'd done that with the Monkey Show.
Right.
They'd done that with the show. The show itself had broke all the barriers. And so I'm now 22, 23. And I'm like, yeah, fuck it. Yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. And we sat down with each other and with Jack and Bob. And I have film. I have actual film footage of this meeting.
Wow. I'd love to see that.
No sound, but a little tape recorder. And we sat down in a hotel room in Ojai for a weekend. And we talked about what we wanted to do, what we didn't want to do, what we'd be comfortable doing, it was this total Kerouacian on the road sort of Jack Cassidy. I mean, looking back, that's what we were doing. It was this just chain of, what do you call it? The
stream of consciousness?
Stream of consciousness. Thank you.
Yeah.
And out of that, Jack, to his glory, wrote this incredible screenplay. I'm not sure how much Bob had to do with it, frankly, but I would think probably a lot maybe. But Jack just went away, and after meeting us and being there and seeing the whole monkey thing from every aspect, and he went and wrote this, I think really amazing screenplay. And so here's my thoughts. At that time, the only kind of 60s hippie kind of movies that were being made were, and I love them to death, Peter Fonda, and
the Psych Out and those kind of things, yeah,
and the freaky far out,
Corman stuff,
the trip,
the trippy, which I remember watching. This is not what it's like. What it's like is in here. It ain't out there. All the experiences, all those sensibilities, all those moments, all that is, essence, that zeitgeist again. It was here.
In the head.
In our heads.
Yes.
Not out there. That's what the press and the, fake news.
Yeah.
They were taking pictures of, VW vans with flowers. I never saw a fucking VW van with flowers. Ever. There probably was one, but that was not what it was about. And Jack, God love him, and Bob and Bert captured the reality of that time. That movie is the only movie I've ever seen that captures the moment. Everything else is Roger Corman. sorry to Roger, but I love him. He's a great filmmaker, but everything else was bullshit.
So the real experience of the '60s and
Well,
what
I
you
think
were
that
what you were living.
I think that movie, and I only had a very small part to do with it.
Fascinating.
I think that it captured a couple of things, and I haven't even started. It not only captured the sensibility of the moment, but more importantly, it captured the idea, and Bob and Bert and Jack and Peter Fonda and Dennis Hopper and Martin Scorsese, the idea of the deconstruction of the Hollywood studio system. This is what was their goal. I did an interview for a Raging Bull.
Easy Riders and Raging Bull. Yeah. Good book.
Yeah, great book. And now looking back, I didn't even think of this at the time. But looking back, this is what was the intent. At that time, as you well know, if you weren't part of the Hollywood studio system, you could not get a movie even made. If you did, if you were lucky to raise enough money like Billy Jack or somebody.
Sure.
It didn't matter. You couldn't get it distributed. You were fucked. You couldn't, you're not going to get 30 screens. You're not going to get one screen. You're not getting shit. And Bob and Bert and Peter and Dennis, obviously, and they're all in the movie Head, by the way.
Sure.
This is my take on it. They said, this is our out clause. This is our way to break out of this fucking locked-in Hollywood studio system. Bert's father is Abe at Columbia. We can make a movie that, and it was cheap, $250,000, $300,000, something for Head. But we can make a movie that, like, sets a different sort of parameter. I mean, it's like all of a sudden, here's something different. And that is, what the movie was. And they took that money, they made Easy Rider.
That's right. That's right. People forget that.
And Easy Rider, of course, totally deconstructed the Hollywood studio system. It created the independent film industry.
I got a question here from somebody loosely connected to that movie. You know Victoria Mature? Victor Mature's daughter?
Please.
I told you were going to be on. She says, please ask Micky, at the premiere of Head in New York, there was some kind of art installation. Was it an Andy Warhol thing? Does he have any memory of that?
Absolutely.
Look at you.
Absolutely, I do. Andy Warhol was a big fan. He got it.
Another guy who got the monkeys.
He got the monkeys, the whole pop culture thing, God knows. I mean, way beyond my sensibilities at the time. But he was a big fan. He came up to me and introduced himself, like Frank Zappa, like others, John Lennon.
I bet Harry got it too.
Oh, yeah.
Another smart guy.
Harry.
With a wicked sense of humor.
Harry definitely got it. And yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
Look at that. You got a vivid memory for all of this stuff.
From my age, right?
Well, just the stuff that you want to. Can you talk a little bit about your adventures with the Hollywood vampires, which I think Gilbert is fascinated by, with Mr. Nielsen and Mr. Cooper?
Absolutely. Alice lived next door to me. His name was Vince, actually.
Was it Vince Fournier?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we became friends. He recorded in my studio his demo album, a couple of them. We just became friends and hang out and stuff. And played golf together. My ex father-in-law, an English duffer, taught both he and I to play golf.
Uh-huh.
Of course, Alice is now like a 3 a handicap or something or better. And I'm not good at all. But one day Alice says, and he lives next door to me. He moved next door to be next to me.
Alice Cooper did.
Alice did, because we knew each other. And we built this like kind of launch thing. What do you call it? A catapult, where we would send beer cans into each other's pools. And Alice babysat for my daughter.
Wow.
When Samantha, my first wife, and would go out of town, and if Alice was in town with his wife at the time, I have pictures of him babysitting my daughter, Amy, with a can of Bud. and we became very, 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 very good friends, very close. And he would record in my little demo studio. I have the original "Only Women Bleed."
I love that song.
Yeah, amazing. And then one day he said, we should start a charity softball team. And that's what it started as.
The Hollywood Vampire started as a charity baseball team.
I know, and people laugh and they go, you got to be kidding me.
Oh, my God.
It was a softball charity. If you look and you find any photos of us, I wish to God I had this damn shirt. It was a baseball shirt with a vampire thing. We were doing charity baseball, softball events with the fire department, with another record company, with the police department, we were raising money for charity. Doing myself, Alice, Harry, Albert Brooks, whoever. And we would play these local softball games trying to raise money for charity. And then we would, finish the game, usually lose, and then go to the Rainbow Bar and Grill and get hammered. But the intention...
It was well-intentioned.
Original intention was, and we did raise money, and we played the police department and the fire department, and we would raise money for local law enforcement. Or the best one was that we got challenged by a boys' school. What do you call it? Not a boys' school, a detention.
Like a reform school?
Yeah. Thing up in the hills above L.A. And they challenged us to a softball game. And so we went up there, me and Alice and whoever. Peter Tork played. He's actually a really great athlete.
Keith Moon wasn't playing, was he? Because he was sort of an
I don't remember him playing. But I do remember Albert Brooks and Alice and myself, Peter Tork, a few others that actually were, okay athletes. And we went up to Angeles Crest Highway and to this boys' reform place, and we just got the shit kicked out of us. These kids just beat the shit out of us. But we made the point. I mean, it's like, and we raised a little money, and then we went to the Rainbow and got hammered.
That's just hilarious. But this is how it started.
So it was not a drinking club.
It was not.
I want to.
You're making
go
news.
Down on record. It did not start out as a drinking club. It started out as a charity softball team.
That's fascinating to me.
To raise money for local causes.
I love that. Go ahead, Gil. You have something?
No.
I was going to say, as we're winding down, Mick, tell us about the new album. Tell us about Christmas Party.
Well, after the incredible success of Good Times, which
is great.
This last album.
Monkey fans, please get it. It's great.
Oh, my God.
You'll be glad you did.
Who 50 years later, 5 decades later, gets a top 20 album. The equivalent I worked out mathematically was that if in 1967 Enrico Caruso would have had a top 20
Wow.
album
That's
from
mind-blowing.
1917,
That's mind-blowing.
or
Yes.
Eddie Cantor.
What an
or-
analogy.
Yeah. I worked the math out. So the fact that a 50-year-old act
Yeah.
gets top 20 pretty cool album alone, that is, and I feel so blessed to have, all these writers,
Andy
Ben
Partridge.
Gibbard,
Yeah.
Alan Partridge, Rivers Cuomo. I mean, oh my God, I feel
Peter
so
Buck.
so blessed.
Yeah.
And well, the new one,
Yeah.
the Christmas one now. So after Good Times, the record company, of course, wanted to capitalize on it and chase it up. I did not feel comfortable trying to do Good Times 2 immediately. It would have been a lot of work and very difficult decisions, because a lot of the material that we had found was archival. And there was some, and there is some, and we may do that, but I just didn't. I thought, we just got this. It's still on the charts.
Yeah.
And what are we going to do? Resurrect some other Davy Jones old vocal? It just seems a little bit.
Do something different.
Yeah. So someone at Rhino said, how about a Christmas album? Which we had never done. And I, as sort of the de facto lead singer, I said, wow, that's a cool idea. I mean, because it is not this kind of attempted follow-up, number 2, Good Times 2, Batman 2. And so we reached out, Adam Schlesinger essentially reached out to Rivers Cuomo and to Andy Partridge and to the other writers and said, what do you got? And we did find stuff from Davy,
Right.
from the 70s. And Nez came up with a beautiful version of Snowfall, which I love because I remember my mom singing it in the 50s.
Mm.
Originally it was a instrumental.
I like Tony Bennett's version, but I haven't heard the instrumental.
That was the original.
Oh.
There wasn't lyrics.
Oh.
In the 30s.
Interesting. I'd like to hear that.
I think 30s.
Like to hear
It
that.
was just an instrumental. And someone, I can't remember the name, probably have it here somewhere, wrote the lyrics. And so Nez does that. It's beautiful. And I do a couple of, I think pretty cool tunes.
I heard the single, this Unwrap You for Christmas. Unwrap You at Christmas.
Yeah.
It's good. What do you say, Gilly?
Well,
We'll plug the album one more time, the Christmas album, Christmas Party.
Thank you.
And Nez Dolenz dates coming in 2019.
Yeah. The confirmed dates are March. The makeup dates from the last tour. Thank God, touch wood, Nez is healthy, and 8 more.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we can't do more than 2 or 3 a week. We're both way too old and ugly.
All right, Gilly.
So first of all, before anything else, Peter Talk, if you're out there, you have to get well and come on this podcast.
Yes, Peter.
Please, Peter.
Yes.
If you're hearing this, I hope you are well. Please come on and meet with my friends here. It is so fun, and it's not far from you. He's in Connecticut.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
We'll even send an engineer to him.
please.
We'll
that
we'll
would be
interview him
cool.
right in his
Yeah,
living room.
so
Make
that-
it easy for him.
Please.
Absolutely.
They would so love to hear from you. I hope you're well. And to you, Nez, I know you're recovering and you are also well. That's wonderful.
Yes, we love Mike.
Yeah.
In
And
fact, both of you get extra healthy and come on together.
We'll make news.
And fuck Micky Dolenz.
in your dreams, Skipper. In your fucking dreams. You wish never gonna happen.
Answer that phone, Mick. Thanks for doing this. It
So, yeah.
was a blast.
So, yeah. Micky, Peter, best of health to both of you.
That was Mike and Peter.
Mike and Peter. Oh, fuck it all. I gotta get to sleep.
In your dreams,
Peter, you
Skipper.
get well
In
and do
your
the
fucking
show.
dreams. You
Mike,
wish
you get well
never
and
gonna
do a return
happen.
Absolutely.
And
I want to thank Mike Dopkins, too, for
Micky.
helping with research.
go fuck yourself.
Mick, thanks for making the schlep. That was Mike and Peter.
Thank you, Micky.